the planet's always changed. Are we impacting it? Probably accelerating it, but it has been happening for a long time. And one would say, do we want to talk about our impacts on the acceleration of global warming, or do we want to work on the problems that are coming to us because of it? Do we want to work on both? Maybe that's what to do. But I would say it's interesting that the planet's gone through these changes before without humans causing it. What is there to do about it? Humans, I think, have a unique ability to say it's not a problem until it's my problem.
Welcome to the Level Design Podcast, a podcast for architects and engineers who want to thrive in this industry by creating more freedom, fulfillment, and financial security. Join us in uncovering how to restore value and honor to the unique people who choose to be designers and caretakers of our built world, and why it's essential to the future of our society, our industry, and our planet.
Global warming and climate change and the world heating up and oceans boiling and rising, it's all kind of scary, but it's interesting to look at the facts of what's happening and what that means to you could look at the whole world, but let's just focus on the US mostly. What does that mean for Americans? If you're living in Florida, we just had a few pretty devastating hurricanes show their strength and displace people. So yeah, I wanted to kind of look at what's causing this and what does it mean and what are the projections into the future?
Well, a lot of debate on that, right? We could talk about that. I mean, the planet's always changed. I think what I hear now, it's interesting, the trip to the Arctic that we took this summer, I was talking to a Norwegian naturalist, and he was giving us a tour of Svalbard. And we were up there, and he goes, and his interpretation was this, it just made me pause for a minute, because this is a person that's outside of the U.S. noise and rhetoric. And he goes, and we're looking at the ice sheet in the Arctic, and he goes, what we're looking at, he says, is the end of the current ice age. It was interesting to me. It wasn't a conversation about, aren't we evil as humans that we're causing this? His interpretation, which is probably accurate, is no, this is the end of this current ice age. Are we impacting it? Probably accelerating it, but it has been happening for a long time.
Right.
And one would say, do we want to talk about our impacts on the acceleration of global warming, or do we want to work on the problems that are coming to us because of it? Do we want to work on both? Maybe that's what to do. But I would say it's interesting that the planet's gone through these changes before without humans causing it.
It's just crazy when you put it in perspective like that. The Earth is going through its natural cycles in a lot of ways. And then, yeah, we play a role, but there are also plenty of other external factors. And then we're sitting in this perfect moment in time. And it is really a moment, because look at Earth's history. It hasn't really been inhabitable like it is now for very long.
Are we really just talking about the struggle of climate change, be it natural or man-made? What is there to do about it? Humans, I think, have a unique ability to say it's not a problem until it's my problem.
Right.
Yeah. It's a fallacy until it's actually me. So you ask the people in Florida, is it your problem today? Yeah. But if you're in Illinois, is it a problem? Probably not.
Right. Yeah,
right?
It's almost like global warming is almost a positive for certain locations.
Yeah, right. But, this stuff's happening. I was fascinated with, hey, depending if you're in a major ice age or you're in a global warming phase, regardless of the reason, the oceans change 400 feet.
Jeez.
What?
Yeah,
what does that mean?
Yeah. Well, the ice, I think the easiest, it's a very complex topic, first of all. And I'm not going to sit here and convince you that I know anything about this, but I've tried to consolidate some research that we can pick apart a little bit. But obviously, there's ice all over the world. Well, more consolidated in certain areas, but it's melting. And that's kind of an easy, logical way to look at this. All right, if those continue to melt at a certain rate, eventually the oceans are going to rise, and that's going to eat up some of the land and cause other issues. And I feel like we're already seeing a lot of the impacts from just Mother Nature being more intense and things happening at a higher level. Some things that I see here are, okay, global average temperatures have risen by 1.1 degrees Celsius since the late 1800s, with most warming occurring in the past 40 years.
Oh man, research. I love research, but I always ask, who paid for the research?
Yeah. Well, I want to be super transparent. And there's a tool, it's an AI tool called Perplexity. A lot of people have probably heard of it. I don't know if you have, but it's basically it's growing really fast. It's really popular now. It's a tool that consolidates everything on the web into what you're looking for. So instead of you having to type in a question to Google, get a bunch of websites and blogs and articles, and then go into those articles, read through a bunch of BS just to try to find one little answer, that can be really time consuming. This just consolidates everything and then sources it.
Oh, that's cool.
There's some really cool things with that. There's probably some growing pains and little issues with that. I actually just heard recently that they're going through some sort of lawsuit where, certain websites make money by people going to their website. And that's great. But also you're basically trying to keep people on their website long enough to make money from them. And then, with ads and stuff. So they're kind of stealing people from that.
I got it. But every great thing's got to be funded. You got to fund it.
100%. So
it's business.
We'll keep an eye on that because that's kind of interesting. But it is one of my favorite tools in the AI space, which we're going to have an episode all about AI here soon. But anyway, back to the research.
Yeah.
So global average temperatures have risen by 1.1 degrees Celsius since the late 1800s, with most of the warming occurring in the past 40 years. I think the interesting part about this data is when it's like so consolidated to the last decade or 40 years, and there's a huge increase, which could be correlated with certain inventions, with certain human activities that have skyrocketed. So that's what to me logically we can kind of point to and look at, because there's things we can do to change and mitigate and prepare.
There's different lenses, right? I mean, I could play devil's advocate in all this stuff, but if you were like, the dinosaurs had this wonderful lush forests all over the planet, right? Mm-hmm. And the dinosaurs lived 120 million years with very small brains. They did very, very well because there was plenty of food, right? Everywhere. Life was robust all over the planet. It was 5 degrees warmer than the current planet.
Interesting.
I don't know. That'd be cool if it was green everywhere. I'm just playing devil's advocate. Okay.
No, it's. I like the way you're thinking.
Lots of rainforest. Awesome.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, definitely.
Keep going. I don't know.
Well, it's crazy too to see different climates all over the place. I mean, I'm here in Texas. It's completely different than if you go to the Amazon.
Sure. I think you're going to get into what humans are doing or influencing, which is actually starts to be disturbing because we are we're losing things, and we are now getting more and more confident that we're causing it. And I'm guessing you're going to show us the data that starts expressing that reality.
Yeah. So ocean acidity has increased by 30% since the early 1800s due to absorption of greenhouse gases. So there's that word, greenhouse gases. We'll obviously hear a lot about that.
Not good, because history does show that this has happened before, and it's actually been the reason for mass extinction is acidity of oceans. That's not a good data point, right?
Yeah, that's scary.
Because we know that acidic oceans have caused mass extinctions.
Wow.
Not good.
Yeah. And then on top of that, what is causing all this? Well, we've got obvious stuff like burning fossil fuels, coal, oil, gas for energy production and transportation, which is only going to continue to skyrocket, right?
What are we doing here? What are we doing here? So that I think a lot of people are like, so I like the convenience of my car to get to my job. I like the convenience of moving goods to get delivered to my house. Something from way overseas ends up on a ship, gets made by a affordable labor, gets put on a ship, ends up here. Amazon delivers it in a box made from a tree. This is great.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything. This is awesome. But what does it mean? But what does this mean, this oil thing? What does it mean? It means we're carrying stored energy from millions of years ago that was produced by the sun, be it plant or animal. It was energy from the sun stored for millions of years. We're taking that stored energy and we're bringing it forward and releasing it all at once in current time. And the planet's not used to that. That makes it unstable. That's all we're doing.
That's it right there. Yeah.
That's it.
It's pretty simple.
It's causing imbalance.
So you talk about human convenience a lot. It's on our website. Like that is one of the biggest points of interest for us because we have always, I mean, that's kind of what human evolution has always trended towards is more and more convenience. And now it's almost, comedic at this point, how convenient it is to get something that used to take so long can be here this evening, right? And you've got things like DoorDash and Uber Eats where you don't have to go, you don't have to cook. Someone will go pick up food from a restaurant, bring it to you. Like it's stupid at this point. And so
it's insane. It's insane. And 80% of the population, this is an interesting data point, 80% of the population on the planet of humanity lives within the carbon they produce is less than the planet environment can absorb. So when people say we can't, 80% of the population already does live in balance with the planet. It's the 20% that doesn't.
Interesting. And you got to think that number is only going to rise unless we do something pretty drastic because convenience is king. We covered the, burning fossil fuels, energy, transportation. There's a lot of things we can do there. There's a lot of things that are happening there. We've also got deforestation and land use changes. So this is a big one. I mean, you've been to the Amazon a couple of times. That's an ongoing issue.
5 times, yeah. Mm-hmm.
5 times. There you go. There you go. So, I mean, the more we literally just chop down trees, use that land to then produce more greenhouse gases and cause more issues down the road, the harder the planet has.
Yeah, there's that. There's that. But more importantly, this forest is, and not only this forest, but, you look at the major forests in the planet absorb carbon. And like you talk lungs, to the indigenous. Right? What's that?
They're like the lungs of the planet, or maybe in a way like the liver too.
It's actually quite fascinating. It really, because of its position and where it's at, it literally absorbs a lot of carbon. So it is the filter of the planet. So it filters the carbon out of the atmosphere, and it needs that. It needs the carbon for the forest, for the trees. It needs carbon. Crazy. So it's this natural balance. But the global warming is changing the climate so that it's not raining as much. And the Amazon's biggest impact is, I would argue, is not the deforestation of it on the edges of humanity. It's monstrous. It's actually, I mean, everybody will argue with me on that, but it's actually the global warming that's the dangerous thing because the whole forest is going to die.
Right.
It's not raining. And if it quits raining and this forest dies, it is the largest carbon absorber. It will die and actually be the largest producer of methane.
Mm-hmm. Jeez.
Which is called the tipping point.
Yep.
People refer to it as the tipping point. If the Amazon, which is already happening, if it goes from the largest carbon absorber to the largest carbon producer, we're done.
Mm-hmm. There's no going back.
It's not the burning of the edges necessarily. It's the entire system of the planet has got to change quickly. So if you're in Illinois, I would argue you better wake up and quit buying crap.
Right.
Because when that Amazon goes, you're going to go.
Right.
I don't want to instill fear, but we're an adaptive big brain group. We'll figure it out. But
yeah.
Wow.
That's the thing, is we have, like, the solution is there. I would argue that the solutions that we need already exist and arguably are already at play. It's just at what scale and who's in the way.
It wouldn't be the first time. that humans didn't change quick enough and it causes problems.
Looking for a new opportunity? Interested in being part of an expanding network of independent engineers and architects who are thinking differently? Level Design Partners is on a mission to create prosperity for design professionals, the industry, and the world, using innovative business systems and a culture of collaboration. We believe that traditional education and firm structures want you to be a cog in their machine, depriving you of key skills needed to thrive, thus commoditizing an entire industry in the process. Gain access to skills, tools, and systems by partnering with Level Design Partners. Learn more at leveldesignpartners.com.
Right. Up to 1 million plant and animal species are at risk of extinction due to climate change and related factors. Arctic sea ice could disappear entirely during summer months before 2050. Extreme weather events, including heat waves, droughts.
What is that global climate related? What happens when the ice melts? So what?
The sea's got to rise. I don't know how high, but can't be good for coastal.
Yeah, they're all arguing about that data. But what really is concerning is in the ice cores, they're saying, hey, look, this has happened before. And what we know is it changes the salinity of the ocean and the ocean currents stop. So the Atlantic current stops. So when the currents change in the ocean because of the salinity of the ocean, because there's more fresh water, that actually has very dramatic climate change implications where people are living. So
that's a really interesting point. You know, with Travana, we talked about how the wolves change rivers and how it's this complex ecosystem that is very carefully been developed over way longer than we've been here. And if you mess with it too much, you know, you get certain tipping points.
So what does this mean? And we know things are changing, and we know we're not going to change our behavior in time, is my argument. What does it mean? You're saying, well, you know, everybody's moving to the cities away from the farms. Self-subsistence is a thing of the past. We're actually moving to urban areas. Super interesting. The urban areas think the rural areas are politically not the same thinking, but they totally rely on that group of people, which is just fascinating for me to watch. But if you're in large urban areas, look at the pandemic, you know, economies, what you do to make money in these economies rely on stability of the environment.
Right.
For a lot of things. And if you're going to say, okay, you guys have been living in the urban areas, 80%'s been in the urban areas for a very long time, and you don't have the skill sets, and you're going to say, okay, everything collapsed. You got to go back to get on a farm and find land and self-subsistence, you know, self-feed yourself. I'm going to say that ain't going to happen.
Yeah, no.
Because they don't have the knowledge, which leads me to believe that actually the thing that's interesting to me is we're smart, and the design community can be our leaders once again. Not historically, it's been this way. Our genius design community gets us out of this mess.
100%. There's a couple reasons why. Well, number one, if you look at, you know, you've said this before, one of the biggest causes of global warming is the built world, construction, you know, concrete, and then also like powering those buildings and structures, like that whole world, the built world basically takes up
the built world, yeah,
a pretty large percentage, somewhere around 30%. So, or more actually. So I think
the activity of building things, of the activity of building human convenience.
So that's one side of it, though. I just want to say, like, it's our world, right? It's not that we created this problem, but we can have a direct impact on reducing, mitigating, and improving efficiency so that we can slow this inevitability. And then from the other side, we also have so many solutions and the right, you know, tools and resources to create solutions that can completely overcome these problems.
True. Often maybe fairly simple. I mean, what if government said, all right, we have a 3-day work week.
Yeah.
As a corporation, you can have your employees work from home 2 days a week, rotate, and here's the new law. For those of you that are not in the hands-on service industry, that means half the transportation on our infrastructure, actually, we have these spaces that we have, what we call our homes. We actually leave them vacant during the day and go to another building.
Right.
And then we vacate that building back and we stay in our home in the evening to sleep. And we have this back and forth activity based on what? A lot of businesses, I believe in connectivity and things, but can we reduce it to 3 days a week?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's so many things we could do.
Pretty easy, right? Think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Developing clean energy technologies, improving transportation, enhancing building efficiency, carbon capture and removal, which is really exciting, climate adaptation and resilience, so flood protection and water management systems, infrastructure that to withstand extreme weather events, which if you talk about like restoration versus tearing down and building anew is like substantially cheaper, less of an impact on the planet when you don't have to rebuild. So if you have structures that are able to withstand these things, you're just helping the cause. Waste reduction and circular economy, geoengineering.
Yeah, I think if you're building new buildings, we all like new things, right? This human condition of we like new things. It's getting us in trouble, but I would say, I don't know, can we say you can't tear down a building until you prove that it can't be reused?
I like that. Yeah.
It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute, you can't tear down that building in downtown unless you say it's structurally unsound or you prove to us it can't be repurposed.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
That would change everything, right? That would change a lot.
Yeah, that's so simple. Yeah, and then one thing we haven't really touched on is migration, like people being displaced and what, the trickle down effects of that. According to the US Census Bureau data in 2022, 3.2 million US adults were displaced or evacuated due to natural disasters, and over 500,000 of these individuals had not returned to their homes by early 2023. So this is climate-related migration that, those numbers aren't maybe huge in the grand scheme of things, but if that's only the beginning and we keep going down this road, what issues does that cause?
Yeah. I mean, I could put my negative lens on that and go, oh my gosh, 10% of the U.S. population in the next 100 years needs to move off the coast and go back to the Great Lakes. That's horrible. Is it? I don't know. What if you looked at, I kind of scratch my head about FEMA. I think most of us say FEMA is a burden to taxpayers. Why am I paying for FEMA to fix a Florida house or a Florida infrastructure? Why am I doing that? Well, let's look at it this way. If you look at it from a business perspective, you could say, wow, that's interesting. If I actually made an investment in rebuilding Florida from a hurricane or Texas or everywhere, or FEMA for a fire or FEMA for a flood in the rivers, if I actually look at that as a business person and say, I am actually going to, as an investor, let's call FEMA an investor, I'm actually going to invest in rebuilding that area better, and that's going to generate 3 to 4 times return in economy.
Interesting.
So why don't we look at FEMA as actually a stimulus division of the United States to create economy and jobs in America? It's not a negative. We actually invest in and stimulate an economy for America, but we all look at it as this negative lens. And I would say, I don't know if the ocean rises 6 feet, okay, there's going to be some property loss, but you know what? I got to be honest with you. There's areas of the Midwest could use that reinvestment. Chicago, Detroit, these older cities in the Midwest around the Great Lakes could really use new investment. The infrastructure is already there. So maybe this is a wonderful thing that we migrate, and rejuvenate Midwest. It depends on the lens,
100%.
I don't know.
That's really interesting, actually, that perspective. When I look at other countries, particularly smaller countries, they're really good at, like, if you look at the food system compared to the US, it's much better, it's much healthier because it's all so local compared to the US. And
Well, maybe, but yeah. Okay, for some areas of the world.
well, you go to Europe and you don't get bloated after every meal, or you feel good after. You can eat unlimited pizza in Italy or somewhere and not feel the effects. And I know I'm going off topic here, but my point is, it's because it's local. It's because it's local, it's fresh. It doesn't have the problems that we have in the US with being so spread out and being so monocrops and all that stuff, where we're just kind of destroying the land and then pumping it full of stuff that is harmful for not only the planet, but us. And then we have issues from that. And then the transportation that is needed to get it to where it's supposed to go is increasing and causing issues. So what my point is it would be awesome if we could figure out a way to go back to local and farming and everyone being more self-sufficient and then supporting their neighbor, like that kind of thing, which is the opposite of if you go to a city and you're just Uber Eatsing everything.
Yeah. 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 I mean, you're talking about farmers' footprint, Dr. Zach Bush theories, and, there's a movement, right? There's a movement on healthier food and getting away from herbicides and pesticides and GMO to resist those herbicides and pesticides. And, we're having all kinds of health issues and gut issues, and the soil's been killed by these chemicals, and now we're fertilizing because we've killed the soil with herbicides and chemicals. So now we have to fertilize, and now our tomatoes and our vegetables suck because we don't have everything to make them taste good, and it's just this horrible cycle. And you can Zach knows all this stuff more than I do, but there's a whole bunch of bad things going on in industrialized farming in America. But what's behind it is big business.
Yeah.
The industrialized food system, the affordability of it, the pesticide industry, the chemical industry is a huge industry, monstrous industry. The GMO seed industry is a huge industry. And then all of this creates this wonderful thing. Super interesting. This creates a lot of illness. So the pharmaceutical medical industry benefits from the sickness.
Right.
These are probably the 4 biggest industries in America.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got a big fight.
Yeah, I'll pull up the graph in post, but it's something like thousands of these companies in the big food, big pharma, household items and stuff are all owned by 10 companies. And so you have these huge monopolies. And this is one of the downsides of, the system that we've chose. It is a downside. We're working on it, but and I think all this stuff ties into global warming and climate change. Like, if you have this greed model, you're not going to have people and systems that want to create positive change and stop what they're doing if they realize it's hurting people or the planet, and they're very short-term thinking. And
affordable food is a really unique American idea because of the breadbasket, and we can produce food pretty affordably, and we've enjoyed the affordability, and we've really put our foot down that we'd rather have a really nice car than the price of egg go up. So we're willing to make these decisions about healthy food, not paying more for healthy food, but having a nicer car. I don't know where the trend goes, but that's what's happening. And then you throw global warming or climate change on it. Going to be an interesting journey. But I would say that consistently when I look at this stuff is we need to change systems of how we're getting decisions, and we need to change how we're impacting our decision makers.
Yeah.
So special interests, lobbyists, that has to change, or we're really going to be facing a lot of economic loss, property loss, and just migration issues. And it's going to be, and I can say with confidence that my opinion is we're down a path that if we don't get strong leaders that can make hard decisions now, we're going to be really reliant on our design community to save us because we're going to be in it. We're going to be in it. And then we're going to need our problem solvers. I think you said it earlier. Wow, we need a multi-pronged look and change on how we're doing things, or we're going to be really faced with some hard stuff. And not all of us are going to come out of it. But I would say, wow, if you have a really, really good design community, man, we're all moving into the Great Lakes. Climate's wonderful. Florida's underwater. Yeah, a lot of us lost property. FEMA's a catalyst for investment, a stimulus package. We're just all moving to the Great Lakes, right? I don't know.
That seems to be a trend for this episode, the Great Lakes. Well, in wrapping all that up, obviously it all comes down to, us, like you said, and the design industry and designers. And so obviously we need to have those people being supported and passionate about their work and working on the right problems.
Yeah. And just, please stop buying plastic water bottles. Think of all the other species on the planet, how we're all connected.
Yeah. You vote with your dollar.
Yeah, you do. You really do. And then, it's happening and it's all solvable, but let's look at our systems. Let's look at our decision makers. Let's elect the right people. Let's get to solving it. It's not that you said earlier, technology's here. We've got the answers. We got to implement now. That's it.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Scott, tell me what you think of SpaceX catching this huge rocket falling from space the other week.
Wow. You know what? Elon Musk, what a brilliant designer and engineer. It kind of reminds me of Benjamin Franklin. What a brilliant human. I mean, but behind the scenes, it's kind of ugly, I think. We have a wonderful planet here. And I know Elon's driven, I think what I've heard and what I've read of him and his brilliance is he's pretty sure humanity's already broken this. And we got to figure out how to be able to go somewhere else and make it. So he's very driven on saving humanity, but he doesn't think this is the place that's going to be saved. And this technology push that he's doing, to figure out how to live somewhere else, I don't know if I buy it, man. This is still a wonderful place. It's very, very worth, it's not that far gone, I don't think at all. It's not even close to me. And certainly Mars is not the place to go. But I think if you look at his engineering, taking from a structural standpoint, he's a very, very hard person in business and his people. He's hard on his people. But look what he gets done. And you look at what bureaucratic government can no longer achieve the right things to get done to save the planet. I would say, look at the private sector and how fast they can solve things. And let's start letting the private sector solve these things. And Elon's proven that, if anything Elon's proven, is it's much more effective than the government system on getting us out of this problem.
This is the positive side of the system we're in. We talked about the negative, right? But this is really cool to see that, NASA moves slow, or at least it has, which is kind of a sad thing we could talk about another time. But, he stepped in, SpaceX doesn't have anything in the way. It's just going. And it was able to launch a bunch of these rockets up, fail, look at the problem, fail again, look at the problem, solve them. And now it has done something that is historical. It's really cool. Really cool what he's done.
And it's not even his only project. I mean, you look at all of his other projects.
Of course. Awesome.
Thanks, Miles.
Thank you, Scott.
Let's go private sector.
Yeah.
Okay.
See ya.
All right. Bye.
Thanks for listening. If you found value in this episode, support us by sharing it with someone or leaving a review. In upcoming episodes, we'll discuss the realities of the industry today and what the future may look like. It's our belief that positive changes for architects and engineers is not the obligation of the industry, but rather a choice you make to reimagine how we work together. We invite you to join us in creating a world in which design professionals thrive. Learn about our mission and get involved by following us wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribing to our newsletter at leveldesignpartners.com.